So I do want to start work on the radio now, and I'm not just going to dive in there and change all the wax paper and multi-paper capacitors. I will change them all along with the electrolytics, but I want to be a little bit more scientific about it. I do have this problem on the VHF, and the good thing is the schematic has a lot of test points here with the expected voltage ranges. So I want to go through all those test points first, just to get a record of how the circuit is now. And when I do the changes, I can go through those test points if I feel I need to. So I've got a reference to work against and see if there's any changes. So I think that's a better way of going about it. So I'm just going to take a voltage reference now. I'm using the clips on the multimeter because I don't really want to go probing around this circuit. I want to make sure everything's safe before I do it. Make sure it's all turned off before applying the clips, and then we'll turn it on and have a look at the voltage. So I'm expecting on this test point about 1.7 volts. So let's see what we've got. So I'll just probably have to turn the radio on. And we're not really getting much there. So that's quite an interesting thing to note. So I'll just go around the radio, just make sure I've got everything right there, and we'll just keep going through. Yeah, it's just clicking up on the FM. Try it on the medium wave. Yeah, so we're not really getting a voltage there, so that could be significant itself, but we'll do all the measurements first and we'll see where we are. So I did manage to get the first test point working. I just needed to leave the radio on a little bit longer, and it came in at 1.4 volts. I did see some curious readings when I went right around the radio. Test point 2, especially in FM mode, was fluctuating between 140 and 146 volts. I thought that was significant. It was steady in AM or medium wave, 102 volts, which is very close to the reference. Other ones to note were test point 5, test point 8, and test point 12 especially, and test point 14. I thought the deviation there was too great to be intolerance for the radio. I don't know if these are significant or not, but at least I do have a reference to work with now. As I change components, I can recheck these test points to see if it makes a difference. Okay, so at the point now where we can start changing the capacitors. I've been through all the test points from the schematic onto the radio. Most of the voltages are in the right ballpark. One or two are slightly higher, most of them are slightly lower, so that may or may not be significant. Point is, I've benchmarked this radio as it stands now, so as I go and make changes, I can see if, what the effect is on the circuits. Word of warning, when you turn the radio off, the high tension's still energized, 250 volts, so just be very careful. It's, I guess, one of these things about these old radios, you really got to be careful, and you've got to do all these assessments just to make sure you understand what you're dealing with. So I'm making sure everything is turned off at the mains when I do the changes, and it's all unplugged. And I'll also be monitoring the high tension just to make sure it's down to a very safe voltage before I start taking anything out. So really that's it. I think strategy wise, I'll probably start with the electrolytics. It's only 4 of those. And then I'll probably just work through section by section, and then periodically turn it on and just see how we're getting on. And if it doesn't work, then I can go back and work out what the problem is. So yeah, let's just get on with it. I just thought it'd be interesting to compare the new electrolytics with the old. You can see the difference in size there. I know there's 3 in this can, 3 capacitors in that can, but obviously the size of the new ones is phenomenally smaller. So yeah, all I need to do is just get on and start changing these. So that's the capacitors changed. That's the 3 in the can, which are on the side of the radio. These are the modern equivalents here. Also changed this 5 microfarad electrolytic, and this is really tacky to the touch, and it's got some detritus at the end, and it didn't measure anything when I measured it out of circuit. There's no capacitance there at all, so that's not in good condition. Just going to give this a quick test, make sure there's no smoke. Let's put the mains on, and we'll just go to medium wave, and we'll see what happens.
That is our base, man. Let's go around all our feature games. In the EFL, we'll start with a...
Yeah, so that's still working there, which is good. So I'll go on to the next stage and start changing some of these hunts, which are the molded paper capacitors. So I've changed C54 and C56, the yellow capacitors there. There was a couple of waxes in that place, and the radio's gone really quiet, which is unusual, because what I put in is within specification, and you have to trust the schematics. So I'll just keep an eye on that. I've noted it for the moment. If the radio doesn't pick up volume as I work through, then I'll probably change those back and see what the effect is. So I resolved the issue around the low volume for the medium wave. I must have applied too much heat to one of the polypropylene capacitors because that was faulty. So I simply replaced that, and I've got good volume now.
Send the pass forward.
In fact, the volume is improved significantly as I'm going through and changing these capacitors. That's actually half the volume. What's most important to me is when I went to change the first molded paper capacitor, which was C14, and it's on the output of the VHF. It's actually a filter capacitor on the VHF circuit. That was really faulty, and when I go to the FM now, that clicking sound has gone. So we are stabilising the FM. I'm still not getting any stations, so there may be a fault in the FM module, or it may be just the antenna. But it's definitely a step forward at this point in time. So just to give you a little update as to where I am now, it's interesting when I change this capacitor here. It's supposed to be 10 nanofarad capacitor. It measured 27 picofarads. The clicking sound came back on the FM, but when it came back, I just started to pick up some stations. So I think that's actually progress. I've got about 9 more of these paper hunts capacitors to change, and I'm hoping that's just going to bring everything into line. Incidentally, for soldering these joints, I'm having to use a lot of isopropyl alcohol on there just to clean them up. Otherwise, the solder doesn't stick. They're actually very oily and very grubby. So that's just another thing to note, really. That's just a little bit of the FM sound now, just starting to get some stations. So I've changed 3 more faulty paper capacitors. They're all very, very gone. And the good news now is I've got some FM.
They claimed that they were the first victims of Nazism, which...
So, picking up quite a lot of channels now. Just check medium wave. Turn the volume down. Yeah, the radio is really loud now, so there's actually only 3 more capacitors to change, so I'm confident that's going to finish the job really from the electrical side of things. So that's all the capacitors changed that I feel I need to change. I've just got to change the mains lead now and change the bulb, which illuminates the front panel. That's the last bit of electronic work I need to do. So the radio is working very well on FM. I noticed actually when I changed the capacitors on this secondary intermediate frequency stage, I started to get that howling. So to me, there needs to be some setup work that might need to be done. I'm not sure about that. I'm going to take advice. Also, I haven't got a radio frequency oscillator to hand, so that's something I need to acquire as well. I know it's going back to a friend, but I can always come back to this radio and set that up at some time in the future. I think importantly, it is, in my opinion, safe now, and they can get use out of the FM because it's working quite well. So the only task I need to do, like I say, I want to do some work on the key switch here, the piano key switch. I'll clean up the contacts, but I'll do that individually with a cotton bud rather than spray contact cleaner in there. Same with the potentiometers. I'll clean those up as best as I can. Also as well, the key switch is working there, but if I put something on long wave and then try and turn it off, it won't. It's almost like there's a bar there and it's almost like it's twisting or the spring's too strong. So I'm going to see if I can sort that as well. Like I said, the mains lead needs to be changed, and the other thing is the tone control. So I'll take these knobs off and give them a good clean, and I'll try and fix this tone control as well while I'm doing that, and that's really the radio done. So when I took the tone control apart, it's just removing the knob really. It was obvious that the controller completely shredded. The plastic had gone really soft actually, and it needs quite a lot of strength to turn the potentiometer. The only way to fix that really is to get a new or replacement knob, which I don't really have to hand. And I'm not even sure it's worth acquiring one of that age because the plastic's just going to be in the same condition. It'll just shred. It needs quite a lot of strength to actually turn the potentiometer. So for the moment, it was just a case of setting the tone to a neutral level, somewhere in the middle. And that to me is acceptable. Be good in future. If I can get a tone control, I will get one. There wasn't a lot to do to the case. There was a small crack in the front, which was really only visible from the inside. So that was consolidated with a quality super glue. And there's some fabric gasket, which just needed to be glued back in place. Didn't need to be replaced at all. And it's just a case of cleaning up the case as best as I can. For the back of the radio, there's a lot of delamination of the material, so that was glued and clamped just to bring that back to a suitable state. I also laser cut some reinforcements for the screw holes just so they would hold better than what they were originally. It's time to fit a new 3-core mains flex with a safety earth connected to the chassis. So another addition was the bespoke cable which goes into the pickup connection of the back of the radio. So I just used 3mm banana plugs which fit very well into that. And at the other end it's just a standard 3.5mm audio jack.
A little white toy shop stood, and a little tin soldier.
So it's just a case of replacing the bulb behind the glass panel so that illuminates, and put the radio back together and it's complete. So that's the Bush VHF 61 done. It's going back to its owner. And what a fantastic project this has been. I've just loved working on this from start to finish. It's a really well laid out design, actually really easy to work with. And I was very lucky because this has not been stored outside, so there's no corrosion. I have worked on another radio in between this one, and that obviously been in the shed, and it was just completely different task really with the corrosion, and there was a lot to change on that one. This really has been great. There are some lessons learned. First of all, these Hunt's multi-paper capacitors are terrible. I would change them all systematically, and there's no debate about that. If a radio is going out back to its own, you want it to be 100% reliable, use every day. Pretty much 80% of these were faulty, so I wouldn't even put the effort into testing them. There were a few other faults on this, little minor ones which I needed to address, but generally speaking I was very lucky that it was really just capacitors that needed to be changed really, and the whole thing just came to life bit by bit as I've changed each one, tested it, and it just slowly came back. The other thing I would note is if I'm going to be working with FM radio, not necessarily restoring these vintage ones but building new ones with the valves I've got, then I need to get myself a radio frequency signal generator, signal source, to do the alignment checks. That's one thing I couldn't do on this radio. I think we're okay, but I would like to have gone through the alignment process. When I got a little bit more skill and a little bit more, and get the tools, I'll probably come back to this and do those checks in the near future, just to make sure everything is working as it should. So it's been a great project. And if you like watching these videos, and I've had some fantastic feedback, thank you very much. Please do subscribe, I do appreciate it. I've got some projects queued up to come in down the line, not just radios. We've got Variacs and prototyping system which we're going to use to build some valve designs. I'm already looking at some ideas for radios and amplifiers, reusing TV valves, so we'll put those on as well. Other than that, thank you very much for watching.